Is Appiah Pacho? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Pacho Bibia Boko dear.
Oh, Nyamiado.
Your initial thought, sir, uti BBC at was saying.
Oh, initially, what Yana, I asked him Kaka, Ubisa was at this day and age, the baby about to never beside Mrs. Yana. And I say your organization, we do a lot of investigation to establish what exactly is behind it. Ansana Yawana Mobia, year two. And I know one among the year basic na mode afremino. And for me, that is the first na say your investigation.
Okay.
It's a different perspective to this particular matter. So that will enable us to put the whole thing in a context, so that when we are discussing it, we'll bring proper perspective to it.
So when you went into the issue, what did you discover?
There are so many schools of thought in respect to this particular the first year Momo Modia Tujan say priest aware, and by custom or no was right they say obetimi aware. And the other school of thought they say akorana moaware or his two wife is not directly linked to priest or his two wife. In terms of their tradition, there's a akunya as will be a chaso. The Nipanes or Chasa Akunyano sono. As well a virgin. Na omutini akorano to assume a certain role as to what the role is yenye that particular role here. Again, the performing that right, it should be performed as any marriage that will have what needed to be done within that traditional area, and I said what will constitute a marriage, the right that you need to perform, that's the shape of the whole thing as Inti Aquarano is not as if I'm a priest, for the purposes of sexual and procreation, but Yawaya Aquarana Akunyano. These are some school of thought I gather in respect to this particular case. Need to from own analysis. We realize that there's a lot of questions that need to be asked, because those who believe there's true no man, or they don't see it's a priest man. They don't see anything wrong with it. It's a fulfillment of a traditional right that every Ibiano Omoye, and in fact they started over 800 years ago for this particular tradition, right non performing. And looking at it from younger and young, there are issues of rights, there are issues of protection we also need to talk about. And for us, it is stated clear, if you are below the age of 18 years, you cannot engage in any marriage. And in fact, we deem that marriage to be either early marriage or child marriage. And as to who that person is married to, whether it's married to a stool, is married to a human being, is married to a spirit, it is immaterial. But the position of the law is simple. You can marry somebody who below 18 years. So if the purpose of that tradition is to usher in somebody who is traditionally married, customarily married to a stool or whoever it is, we think that is something that must be explained properly, so that we don't construe marriage as being for the purposes of sexual activities, but it's simply put that once you marry somebody below the age of 18 years, whether the law wasn't so clear on the object as to whether it should be to a stool, a spirit, or a physical human being. We don't have that explanation. But in practice, we all know of what it is. But what we're still having found answers to the fact that the preparation of the child to take up a certain duty, one of the duties that they have not explained properly to us, what duty is the child going to assume in a right that will be performed in a form of a marriage? In the what duty are they preparing the child for? And I think that these are questions that we are seeking answers to. And once we are able to come to that conclusion, we should be able to see how best we can pursue this case to protect our Quran. Because for us, say a tradition nobody cares about it. But we are all discussing it because the object in the center of it is in the Quran. And we all recognize how our laws in Ghana protect the interests of children. So whatever discussion that we have, I think that as journalists, we need to have more focus on the best interest of our Quran in all this. Because tradition is tradition. Nobody will say they don't perform traditional rites. But why is it an issue now? It's an issue because a child is involved. And for us to even discuss it passionately and even look at how best you ever situated the whole thing in the context, I strongly believe that our attention should be on the child. And so that whatever there is that we can do to protect that Quran, we do it.
Just as you mentioned, Oko Act Nima, that is the crime under sections 114, 2, and 15 of the Children's Act, Act 560, speaks against it. But this is tradition. I don't know. And it's been happening for years. I don't know how do you even come in. Yeah, don't cry. I can say, because it's been happening for years.
It is true. So some of these things, starting and tradition has done a lot of things. And over the years, tradition has evolved. And there may be those days before Ube Warrior, you have to be a virgin. But I don't think that as we speak now, that concept is still relevant in our discussion. I mean, within tradition, it's still relevant. Indeed, there are certain cultural practices that we hold on to, and we feel we still need to stick to some of these concepts. It will affect the welfare of Aquara because of the average child in Ghana, it breaking the virginity at the age of 13 years. The average child. And some of them, not their fault, they were raped, they were defiled, all manner of things happened to them. So the average child break their virginity at the age of 13 years. So and it is society that is breaking the virginity of these children. And the society is the same society that is saying that they want to uphold tradition. So if you know and believe that tradition is so relevant and it doesn't evolve, then it is society that must change their ways in order to accommodate it. Otherwise, what is going to happen is that maybe with the 12 years and I'm performing the third rite as they called it. Maybe Baba, Omunyo be a virgin and waiting 12 years. Maybe Omunyo be a wedding virgin and now 6 years. Are we as a nation going to allow the child to go through some of these things in the name of tradition? So these are questions so that we put tradition in a context and respect what they do, as well as respecting the dignity of every child in Ghana. Because sometimes we downplay the kind of value that we place on our children so far as our laws are concerned. There's so much, the law of Ghana respects children so much that the list of things that you do to them, the state can come after you. Maybe the state is adamant in pursuing certain cases. But sometimes it's difficult for the state to do so because they themselves, they don't have the proper structures to be able to deal with some of these things. So sometimes they sleep on those enforcement and all that. But if you take the law and you want to evaluate it, the kind of value that we place on children, and your value is you're taking it for granted at all. So, as much as we want to respect tradition, I think that we have to look at it holistically so that all the elements that need to play a role, their right will be protected, especially when it comes to children. Yes.
Is it high time we reconsidered some traditions, perhaps even reform them?
Of course, we cried because the way and manner for no used to go to war in those days, I don't think that any chief will go to war in the same manner that they did in so many years ago. The way our Hinebe transit, I can't say no. Those days, all kinds of you cry, yetimi kunipa, yetimi yenyama. But today, I don't think that tradition would allow, say, and the idea is to be to kofa babra no or mesoma na kofa obibra ni nkunu na say exio hinibia yenkuku nipa no or no hine no kono 7 no. Tradition has evolved over the years, so we also need to amend our ways to make sure that we accommodate and still uphold to the tradition that we want to do, but the kind of strategies and ways that we go about it, will also be dignified and will also be protect the very players that we want to use in that process.
But Ms. Appiah, TBB say, are we able to perhaps even appeal to the court na small gay yetimi a release of the new rule or performing? Are we able to appeal to the court?
Possible. You see, that is why we are doing our investigation.
Okay.
Because this matter, the deeper you go, the more confusing it becomes. Because even the narrative keeps changing from all manner of justifications, and sometimes it's a bit confusing. And we are looking at a lot of things.
Okay.
One, what is a foundation for us to pursue any matter. One, the ceremony that was performed, it was performed as a marriage. And two, that right non perform here, is to eschew in the form of a marriage. And thirdly, the child in question is being prepared to play a role. So the question is, what role is the child going to play? And Siekas will be a warrior. What does it mean? In the context of their tradition.
Okay.
What does it mean? Siekas will be a warrior. What does it mean? Once we are able to find answers to these things, then we will pursue the matter.
Okay.
Because again, there are 4 things that the state measures what we need to do to children irrespective. Say, one, their right to education must be guaranteed. No tradition in Ghana can take away the right to education of any child, or any religious activity can take away the right of a child. Again, their right to good health. No, hospital, because I belong to a certain faith, no. No. The law do not allow those things. Again, the law also says that we should protect Ankara. And we should make sure that they also participate in the process of whatever they are doing. So the consent of children in participating in some of these things, is not just a decision to decide that Ankara should perform a traditional rite. But the child's view and his consent must also be brought into to say, this right that you want to perform on me, I truly want to go through it. These are questions, these are 4 cardinal principles that you cannot do away with, irrespective of whatever it's tradition, whether it's a religious activity, or whatever it is that you want to do. If you measure your activity against these things and it contradicts those activities, then your position or as to what you want to do is immaterial to the law. So these are things that for me we should have our attention on to see how best we can talk about this issue to bring proper perspective to it.
Now investigations in minim pempen so amedru, but na me bisa say family no modru sa oban ne family side on ma omu position ne say are they okay with it, and also omu tradition ti dia just omu ntimi nka hwemfa ho.
It's the whole thing is so embedded in tradition that the question of whether the parent like it or not do not come in at all.
Okay.
Even if they don't like it,
they have to do it. They have to comply.
They have to comply. So asking them say, "Open na ompeno." On pekra, conclusion is that a tradition we have to fulfill it, and I'm sure say bia ugo bisa kra no kra obeka just say but it's tradition that I have to fulfill. So there's a whole lot of things around it. The only middle ground that can really talk about it has to do with the law. The law must give a proper interpretation as to it, because it is stated clearly that in all things, the best interest of the child should be paramount. So the best interest of the child supersedes the consent of the parent. It supersedes the consent of tradition and religious activities and whatever it is. So once we have a proper interpretation to it, we are good to go, because whatever it is that children are today is as a result of the law. And I can also talk about it because Emraneka say, men fakora say, fakora say, fani say, they fan fakwa ways, men fan fakwa sasakwa ways. So once the law is able to put clarity on what it is, then all of us will comply. I don't think a issue be but Mr. Journalist for the we should be very consistent and develop interest in the best interest of the child in this matter, because the reality of this matter, you can't want them ourselves. I mean, it's not that we debate 24, 20 cranker. But because it is below the age of 18, and intina, so let's keep our focus on the child and bring all the perspective to bear. If it is valid that we have to save the child, we do it. If it is that or your care, we are all good to go. Indeed, that is the message.
Mr. Piampacho bedase, but my colleague ewo question bisa Francafo Mpacho.
Yeah, Mr. Appiah, good morning.
Yes.
Na medase so nincheche mu a wodi amayen, but me was just one question answer na wako. When you say the assembly aye can yesi abofra no oyenkonwa yere. What the kind can say she's been married to us too. Fine. Yes. Married to the stool, no, yenim se stool no so were occupant. Exactly. And she say no, or you married to a stool like what occupant no. We have been told also said there is going to be a second ceremony where she will be purified to perform the duties of a wife, which includes the crucial role of procreation. In the procreation, of course, so if this is one of the aspects of the obeyeno, then it means clearly say ebiano na obinka asem no krani anfanchere and ahunu sa.
Exactly. And untina make because say ebia na bosom no na ebia ebe nyima akwara na. That is what. But I like the narrative that you gave, because okwa hifirikwa na ka so obi akodwa ya. Asabi nipa na fia no so, because akodwa no nipa na fia so. And definitely anything that belongs to Akunyano is also it belongs to the person. But why we are monitoring it is we want to see how this whole thing would unfold. Because the whole ceremony, who we are, is a aware. And there's we saw the representative of the stool performing those rites on behalf of whether the spirit or the stool. It is clearly, there's a physical element in this, but most of it, we are equating it to say, "Be a papa akrana bedankwana a issue." No, but no, it is not about that. Because you see, a child should not marry below at the age of 18 years. In whether the child is married to any form of being, it's a question that we need to ask. Say, what is the way forward for this child? Now that they are going to perform the other ceremony, to usher the child to perform duties. So the question is, what duty is the child going to perform? Once we are able to get the right answer to this question, we should also bring finality to this particular matter.
All right, Mr. Bright Appiah, Executive Director for Child Rights International, Bacho Bedase. Happy Easter to you once again.
Happy
right.
Easter to you too.
Thank you very much.